The entire prison yard went silent. Not the normal quiet. Not the kind where people are just resting. This was different. Every inmate in the yard at the federal prison froze at the same time. Officer Michael Grant felt it instantly. He had worked in high-security prisons for years, and he knew one thing. When a place that loud suddenly becomes quiet, something serious is about to happen. Across the yard, a small group of inmates stood together. They weren't shouting. They weren't moving. They were just watching. Waiting. Michael spoke into his radio. "Yard feels off. I need eyes on group near the fence." The reply came back quickly. "Copy that. Monitoring." But even before backup could react, something changed. One inmate stepped forward slowly. His name was Jason Cole. Michael had seen him before. Quiet. Careful. The kind of inmate who didn't cause trouble, but also didn't avoid it. Jason looked around the yard. Then gave a small nod. That was all it took. Across the yard, movement started all at once. Different groups of inmates shifted at the same time. Not random. Not messy. Coordinated. Like they had practiced it. Michael's grip tightened on his radio. "Lock it down. Now." Officers rushed in from every side. Inmates backed away quickly, some sitting down, others moving to the ground. But not everyone. Jason Cole stayed standing. Still calm. Still watching. Michael walked toward him carefully. "What just happened?" he asked. Jason didn't answer right away. Then he said quietly, "You don't see it yet." Michael frowned. "See what?" Jason looked across the yard again. "Who actually runs this place?" Michael felt something cold move through his chest. Because prisons were supposed to be controlled by officers. Rules. Schedules. Security. But what Jason was suggesting was something very different. Before Michael could ask another question, the alarm suddenly sounded. And from the far end of the yard, two inmates began arguing loudly. Officers rushed toward them. It looked like a normal conflict. But Michael didn't move. Because now he understood something important. The argument wasn't the main event. It was a distraction. And just as he turned back toward Jason, Jason was gone. Vanished into the moving crowd. Like he had never been there. Michael spoke into his radio again. Voice sharper now. "Find Cole. Now." But deep down, he already knew. This wasn't random. This wasn't simple. This was organized. And it had already started long before anyone noticed. Months earlier, life inside the federal prison followed strict rules. Wake up early. Stand for count. Eat. Work. Return to cells. Repeat. Officer Michael Grant had seen the same routine every day. And for the most part, it worked. Because routine created control. And control kept things stable. But even in the most controlled places, something else could exist underneath. Something quieter. Something harder to see. Jason Cole arrived at the prison on a transfer. New inmates were watched closely at first. Who they talked to. Where they Saturday. How they moved. At first, Jason did nothing unusual. He kept to himself. Listened more than he spoke. Watched everything. During his first week, another inmate named Eric Mason approached him in the day room. "You knew?" Eric asked. Jason nodded. Eric sat down across from him. "Word travels fast in here," Eric said. "People want to know where you stand." Jason looked at him. "I stand where I need to." Eric smiled slightly. "That's not an answer." Jason leaned back. "It's the only one you get." Eric studied him for a moment. Then stood up. "Be careful," he said. "This place has its own rules." Jason didn't respond. But he already knew that. Over the next few weeks, Jason began to notice patterns. Who sat with who? Who avoided who? Who spoke quietly? Who didn't speak at all? He noticed certain inmates never had problems. Never got into arguments. Never seemed worried. They moved differently. Calm. Confident. Like they understood something others didn't. One evening, during recreation, Jason sat alone on a bench. Another inmate approached. His name was Daniel Price. Older. Calm. Mind if I sit? Daniel asked. Jason shrugged. Daniel sat down. For a while, they said nothing. Then Daniel spoke. You watch a lot. Jason didn't deny it. Daniel nodded. That's good. Watching keeps you safe. Jason asked, safe from what? Daniel looked across the yard. From not understanding how things really work. Jason stayed quiet. Then Daniel added one more sentence. This place isn't what it looks like. That sentence stayed with Jason. Because he was starting to see it too. Rules existed. But not all power followed those rules. Some things happened quietly. Behind the scenes. Out of sight. Weeks passed. Jason began to notice something else. Certain messages moved through the prison. Not written. Not spoken loudly. But passed in small ways. A nod. A look. A short sentence. And somehow, people understood. One day in the dining hall, Jason saw it clearly. An inmate dropped his tray by accident. Food spilled. Noise filled the room. Officers looked over. But at the same time, 3 other inmates in different parts of the room stood up together. Not reacting to the spill. Not looking surprised. Just standing. Then sitting again. Like it meant something. Jason frowned. Because that was not random. That was communication. Later that day, Jason found Daniel again. That wasn't about the tray, Jason said. Daniel gave a small smile. You're learning. Jason asked, what was it? Daniel looked around carefully. Then spoke quietly. Signals. Jason leaned closer. For what? Daniel paused. Then answered. Control. Jason felt the weight of that word. Control. Not by officers. Not by rules. But by something else. Over time, Jason was slowly brought closer. Not directly. Never directly. That was the rule. Nothing obvious. Nothing open. Everything quiet. Careful. Step by step. He was tested. Not with violence. But with choices. Would he speak too much? Would he react too fast? Would he understand without being told? Jason passed. Because he listened. Because he watched. Because he waited. Then one night, Daniel spoke again. You're ready to understand more. Jason looked at him. Understand what? Daniel leaned closer. The structure. Jason frowned. What structure? Daniel's voice dropped even lower. The one people don't see. Jason's heart slowed. Because now it was becoming clear. This wasn't just random behavior. This was organized. Careful. Hidden. Daniel continued. Everything here runs on layers. You see one thing on top. But underneath, there's more. Jason asked, who's in control? Daniel didn't answer right away. Instead, he said, you don't meet them. Not at first. Jason looked confused. Then how do you know they're real? Daniel gave a small smile. Because everything works exactly how they want it to. Days later, Jason noticed something new. A disagreement between 2 inmates. Small. Nothing serious. But before it could grow, it stopped. Just stopped. No officers involved. No shouting. Just silence. Like someone had decided it was over. Jason turned to Daniel. That wasn't normal. Daniel nodded. No. Jason asked, who stopped it? Daniel looked at him. Now you're asking the right question. That was when Jason fully understood. Inside the prison, there was another system. Not official. Not written. But real. And powerful. It controlled movement. Decisions. Conflicts. And even silence. Weeks later, that system would reveal itself fully. In the prison yard. With one small nod. And one moment of perfect coordination. And now, standing in the yard after everything had just happened, Jason Cole had disappeared into the crowd. Officer Michael Grant stood still, scanning faces, trying to understand what he had just witnessed. Because what looked like a small moment was actually something much bigger. Something organized. Something hidden. Something that had been growing quietly inside the prison for a long time. And now, it had finally shown itself. But only for a second. Just long enough to be seen. And then disappear again.